Hi, and welcome to Decoded. In this episode, we'll sit down with Michael McQuade, a former intelligence officer, physical pen tester, and one-of-a-kind cybersecurity recruiter. With a background spanning British intelligence and projects at AWS and Microsoft, Michael shares hard truths, clear strategies for anyone looking to start their cybersecurity journey. If you ever felt lost or trying to land your first cybersecurity role, or wondered how to stand out in the crowded market, this episode is for you. So, Michael, welcome. And would you like to tell our audience what you do?
Yes, thank you for having me on the podcast. It is appreciated and an honour. I have my own recruitment consultancy company and I specialise in the roles that I've actually done in my career.
And do you want to tell us how you actually got into the role that you're in right now?
Yeah, so based on your introduction, you mentioned that I was former British intelligence. I started off in the British intelligence community in cybersecurity. So I started off in blue teaming, doing a SOC analyst role. And I did a little bit of red teaming. It was mainly based on blue teaming. And I also specialised in other roles. So I'm a qualified SOC analyst, OSINT analyst. Sorry, I already said the SOC analyst, OSINT analyst, and data analyst. So I've got a clear analytical background within three different disciplines there. I was a physical pen tester, so I did physical pen testing for the UK government. So I used to pen test UK airports, government buildings, and UK airports. I also managed AI machine learning projects as well. I'm also a qualified project manager. And then once I left the UK intelligence community, I went for a job at Microsoft. I was headhunted for that role. And then I went to work at AWS in their data center, and I was also headhunted for that role. I worked in a security clearance environment my whole working career. That was the best part. That was the interesting part. That was the sexy part that everybody wants to do because they see it in films and TV series. How did that go from there to working in recruitment? It's not your stereotypical career path. So the reason I've done it is because in October 2023, I received three separate phone calls from three separate recruiters from three separate recruitment agencies. And from now working in the recruitment industry, I understand kind of how this all happened. There's a website in the UK called securityclearedjobs.com, and you can register a free account and apply for security cleared roles. Recruiters can go on the platform and find security cleared individuals for projects. So I created a free account when I left the intelligence community. You never know what opportunity might come on the radar. All three companies were looking for, so for the American listeners, an SCITS cleared, and in the UK equivalent, an enhanced developed vet and security cleared level cybersecurity project manager. So it's a very niche role. For statistics, because I know some people love a statistic, in the UK, less than 0.1% of the UK population could actually do that role. So they've got the clearance, got a cybersecurity background, and also a project manager. So it's very, very niche. When I was on these calls with these recruiters, the first recruiter tried to convince me that for US listeners, a secret clearance and for UK listeners, an enhanced SC clearance was higher than the one I had. So the build up to that point, the conversation was going really well. The person selling the job, she was really lovely, had a great personality. And I was thinking, maybe I'm thinking about doing this. And it was a great salary, a six-figure salary because of the niche of the role. And when that point hit, I thought, do I just let that slide or do I correct the person? Because how many more people has she said that to on a call? And it's going to make her look silly. So I thought, it's best I say, in a really nice way, I was trying to be educational. I said, hey, just let you know, you've got it the other way round. And her personality completely changed, and she got quite aggressive and was trying to tell me that I was wrong, even though I've worked in that environment. And I also went to the point to explain to her, like, what you have to go through to get this clearance, really trying to educate her. She completely ignored all of it and said that I was wrong. The reason she was right is because she had been doing security clearance recruitment for 2 years, but I've been in the industry for a decade. I hung up the call because I thought this is ridiculous. Then the second recruiter called me, and it was a guy. And again, nice, bubbly personality. And he tried to convince me that the National Cybersecurity Centre in London stood for the National Cabinet Security Centre. So again, I tried to educate the recruiter and say, look, I don't mean to be nasty, but this is what it is. And again, his personality changed. And it's like, well, I've been doing cybersecurity recruitment for 2 years. I says, but all due respect, I used to work in that building, so I think I should know. And so I hung up the call again. Then the third recruiter called me, and what this recruiter said to me, I will never forget it for the day I die. The recruiter said to me, I just received this job spec this morning. I know nothing about the job. Are you interested? So I hung up the call. Bearing in mind, I was at AWS at the time, and I'm working in corporation, I'm well paid, all the rest of it. And I thought, is this the level of recruitment standards? Or have I just spoke to the three worst recruitment agencies in the world? So up to this point, I'd never spoke to a recruiter before. Like I was always headhunted. I never went for a recruiter. This was my first experience and exposure. And I also asked all three of them on the call before I hung up, have you ever had security clearance before? All three said no. Have any of you worked in cybersecurity before? No. Are any of you qualified project managers? No. This is what made me walk away from the call and think, how are these people in these jobs? Because I'm trying to think of another industry that you can just walk into, specialize in something you haven't actually done. Because I've got a very analytical mind, I was thinking about it for about 3 days. I couldn't get this experience in my head. And I thought, could I set up my own recruitment consultancy business, specializing in what I've done in my career and be very disruptive? Because that would help candidates like myself and it'd help companies. So I spent 5 months researching the recruitment industry. I spoke to business owners, cybersecurity business owners, and I spoke to candidates from my background from the intelligence community. The candidates had the same experience as me, where they spoke to recruiters, they had no idea what they're talking about, and they get frustrated with the process. I spoke to business leaders who were fed up with recruiters because they have to spend the first half of the call explaining cybersecurity to the recruiter. What is a SOC analyst? They have to explain it all to them. And I thought, you know what? I think I've got a viable product here. I think I've got something very disruptive. And as far as I'm aware, I've yet to be stood corrected on this one. But I believe I'm the only person in the world in the recruitment industry that's got a technical intelligence background. And that's how I
That's
got into recruitment.
that's awesome. Tell me about your recruitment business.
So what type of clients are we talking about?
Clients and candidates alike.
So candidates, all levels, entry level, mid level, C-suite. I specialize in AI recruitment, cybersecurity, and IT. I sometimes get asked by data center leaders if I can help with the recruitment because I've worked in the data center world and security clearance recruitment as well. So when it comes to the client side, again, it's all different levels. It could be startups, it could be stealth founders as well. It could be like a mid-sized company, maybe 50 to 200 size. And what I find with those size is they're not sure whether to get a contractor or to get a full-time staff member. So they want to speak to me from somebody who's worked in the industry and get my opinion. Do they think I should get a contract or a full-time staff member? And what's the pros? What's the cons? They ask me like, we're doing this project. What do you think would be more suitable? Do you think we should go for a full-time or a contract, etc.? So I'm very much, it's not just place people in a role. I'm almost like a virtual CISO role as well, where people come to me and I provide solutions. A lot of recruiters wouldn't be able to do that because they haven't actually worked in the industry. They haven't got the industry background. Their main focus is to put candidates into jobs, whereas I come at it at a different angle where if I really wanted to, I could probably manage the project for them because I've done it before, but I don't really want to dip back into that again. I just want to help people find roles and fix this problem that, 'cause, like I said, a lot of recruiters wouldn't be able to do that because they haven't actually worked in the industry. They haven't got the industry background. Their main focus is to put candidates into jobs, whereas I come at it at a different angle where if I really wanted to, I could probably manage the project for them because I've done it before, but I don't really want to dip back into that again. I just want to help people find roles and fix this problem that from the candidate putting a CV in to getting hired, there's something broken in the middle here. And I believe what's broken is there's not enough experts coming together in this middle piece.
That it's a nail on the head. And those experts, well, non-experts who are in those roles trying to match candidates with jobs, what are the main pitfalls or misleading information they give potentially to candidates?
Well, because they haven't got a technical background for one, what I also do to help clients is a verbal technical interview. Some companies do an online technical questionnaire for candidates. The market's going very much AI way and doing things quicker, but a lot of candidates are getting fed up with that unhuman experience. It's all through automation and they're not really getting that human interaction. Some clients are happy to do it themselves because some clients I work with have actually got a cybersecurity background, so they're happy to do the verbal technical interview themselves. But what I can then offer clients is to save you time because you're a busy individual, I'll do the verbal technical interview for you. And because I've worked in the industry, a lot of them trust my judgment. Would they trust another recruiter who hasn't worked in the industry? I'm not so convinced. And the reason I know that for sure is because before I started my recruitment company, when I worked at Microsoft and AWS, I remember hearing people talk about recruiters in a very bad way, like they bring no value to the market, they're sick of them, like why they even exist. That's a really bad service. But because I'd never dealt with one, I was all just one ear out the other because I didn't have anything to refer to. But now I understand it. Now I understand what they were talking about. So the market was fed up with it because they haven't got the technical background, and I've just come in to be very disruptive. And now you've got that service where you can work with somebody with a technical background. And also a lot of them, and it's very easy to detect as well, a lot of them will post, for example, content on LinkedIn giving an opinion on something, but you can tell it's not their opinion. So they might have seen a cybersecurity leader post something and they'll go, well, I'll copy that. And it makes me look more like a reliable source, like I can help people with recruitment. I feel like I'm really digging heavy into recruiters here. I consciously know I'm doing it, but I'm so passionate about what I do. The problem has to be sorted. There's no other industry I can think of that you can just walk into with no experience and specialize in something like recruitment. There is no other industry I can think of. So I don't think it's an individual recruiter problem. I think it's an industry problem. For so long now, like literally anybody in the world can set up a recruitment company today, tomorrow, next week, set up a company page, a LinkedIn page, and specialize in whatever they want, but they've never actually worked in it in their lives. I think it's an industry problem. It's not the recruiter problem. It's the industry problem.
Absolutely. And from that, obviously, it will depend your candidates who coming to you, their success in getting the roles.
Mm.
Okay, that's awesome. And then from your perspective, getting into cybersecurity in the first place as a candidate, as a new starter who's not worked in the industry before, what are the biggest myths about getting into cybersecurity and how do you recommend overcoming them?
I think the biggest myth is companies, boot camps, etc., saying that if you get these qualifications or you go through our boot camp, you'll get a six-figure salary job at the end of it. It's not true. I have yet to see a job ad or a cybersecurity leader tell me I'm happy to pay somebody a six-figure salary as their first cybersecurity job. It's not going to happen. Maybe you get it in there, but that for me is one of the biggest myths. You are not going to get a six-figure salary. It's a selling tool to get you to buy into what the company. And the thing is, I don't blame companies doing it. Well, I do and I don't. To them, it's a business. Businesses are there to make money. So there's this gap in the market where there's this misconception that students who are naive, they're young, they don't know any different, they can capitalize on that and they can say to them, hey, come do our boot camp or come do this and we'll get you a six-figure cybersecurity job. It's fabricated. It's not true. It's not going to happen. So what I have found is I've had candidates come to me through my DMs on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, Mike, I'm really struggling to find this six-figure cybersecurity job that was promised. I feel like the amount of times I've had to do it is really sad. But the amount of times I've had to break people's hearts and tell them that you're missold a dream, that's not going to happen." Another myth is people think that if I go to university and get a cybersecurity degree, or I do this boot camp, or I get these certificates, I'll get a job in cybersecurity straight away. That's also not going to happen. I'm connected with so many cybersecurity leaders across the world, Europe, UK, US, Canada, even in the Middle East, like Dubai, Saudi Arabia. Like, I'm connected with so many leaders across the world, and I've spoke to them one on one personally, plus my background as well, the knowledge I've got. I would say in my whole time I've been in the industry, I've met three leaders that would be happy to hire a candidate for the first cybersecurity job if they've not got the experience. They'll bring the candidate, give them the training, hands-on experience, and try and build them up. A lot of leaders, if you haven't got a cybersecurity background, want you to get an IT job first. Get a support analyst role or a help desk role. Learn the trade, and there's two things that can happen. Because you're already in an internal organization, if a cybersecurity job comes up internally, you can apply for it. You've done your education, done an IT job for maybe 2 or 3 years. It gives you a greater chance to get a cybersecurity job. Or you can leave your company and apply for a cybersecurity job somewhere else. But if you think you're just going to go to university, get a degree in cybersecurity or computer science, and get a job in cybersecurity, you are going to get a culture shock when you leave. I've lost count over the time I've been working in the recruitment industry, how many candidates have come through my DMs to say, "Hey, Mike, I've done these things I'm talking about. Can you help me find a cybersecurity job? I am struggling." And then they show me their CV. There's problems with that to begin with. But then I have to have that conversation with them, and I feel really bad that I'm the one that has to do it. I don't feel like I should be the one that has to do it, but I have to say to these candidates, "I'm really sorry you've been missold this dream, but I'm going to give you the reality." All of them have appreciated. I've never had a problem. I've never had somebody tell me I'm wrong or they don't agree with me. A lot of them say, "Can you work with me and help me do something to try and get a job in cybersecurity or IT?" So then I work with them and try and help them.
Awesome. And I'm very glad you're saying this. I totally agree with you. Knowing the reality helps you overcome it. Then
Yeah.
with a dream, exactly. So, if you don't mind, let's break this process, this whole thing up. You mentioned people are not going to get into the cybersecurity role immediately after graduation and getting the diploma. So, what kind of roles they can actually get into? Can you give a few different examples what our candidates after the bootcamp should actually look for when they're looking to apply for jobs?
IT entry level roles, that help desk support role. You might be able to get an IT analyst role. That's been quite popular with candidates who are trying to break into basically just any, or maybe even an IT technician entry level role as well. IT engineer, entry level again. Basically, any role that's at entry level. Don't think you're just going to, because you've got a cybersecurity background, go into anything above an IT entry level role. And I hate saying that because I feel like I'm putting glass ceilings on people, but that's just the reality. I'm very much a realism person. I say things how it is. I don't sugarcoat things. I just tell it how it is. And it's not me that's made the industry that way. I'm just the one who's telling you that's the way it is.
Those kind of roles. Obviously, some companies will probably have more chance of you progressing through the ladder, even within the same company, once you get an IT level job. And you mentioned before, once you get to know the company, your environment, then you have more chance of getting noticed and put into that cybersecurity role. So, what kinds of companies, sizes, types do you recommend people to mostly search for to get into with good career progression opportunities?
It's subjective. That's why I can't give a distinctive answer. For example, a startup company, right? Generally speaking, 90% of startup companies, their first couple of hires is experienced individuals because they're most at risk of business failure. So they can't risk hiring an entry level person because they're trying to run a business themselves. They haven't got a support network like an enterprise level company does, or even a mid sized business. So generally, 90% of startups want experience. They want at least 5 years plus. Some of them will go 10-year plus. But I have met one person who was willing to bring an entry level person in, but that was only because they were also hiring an experienced person. So the experienced person was more doing the shadowing of that individual. If you were going to go into that route, I would say mid-sized to enterprise is probably your best level. Now, the problem with going to enterprise is it's super competitive. There's people with a vast amount more experience who are applying for those jobs. So companies like your Microsoft, your AWS, your Google, Facebook, or sorry, Meta, super competitive jobs. So you might get lucky and might be able to get like a really bottom of the chain role in one of those organizations. But even at that, you're competing against so many candidates. Mid-size is probably your best. However, I'm going to be very controversial because I've got a very strong opinion on this one. Where I think it's also broken, and again, this is a shame for the candidates more than anything, is when it comes to companies, a lot of them don't actually know what they're recruiting for. Take an example, I had a client last month who told me they were looking for a SOC analyst. They sent me the job spec, and as I was reading it, it was a pen tester. You told me you want a SOC analyst, but I'm looking at jobs and saying pen tester. I went back to the client and I said, just to clarify, are you looking for a SOC analyst or a pen tester? And they were like, what's the difference? I had to explain the difference to the client. Then I asked them, what is the project you're working on? What is the outcome of the project? The more questions I asked, the more answers I got back. I said, okay, what you're actually looking for is a pen tester, not a SOC analyst. There are two different roles. You might get some unicorns who can do both, right? But let's be realistic, it's one or the other. Because of the background I've got, I was able to identify the problem, give a solution, went back to the client and said, okay, it's a pen tester you want. And they went, okay, can you get us a pen tester? So then I went and found a pen tester. If that company had posted that job spec on LinkedIn or a job board, the cybersecurity company would have looked at that and went, the title says SOC analyst, but the job description says pen tester. This doesn't make sense. And I see it a lot on LinkedIn, for example. They'll ask for like a CISSP certificate. So in order to get that certificate, you need to have 5 years hands-on cybersecurity experience. They'll ask for that certification, but they only want 2 years experience. Therefore, that doesn't make sense. There's this problem where a lot of companies don't actually know what they're recruiting for. You've got HR managers or internal recruitment teams who haven't actually done the job themselves or worked in the industry, so they don't know what they're looking for. This is the pitfall for candidates. It's almost like they're climbing up Mount Everest just to get a job in cybersecurity.
Wow.
And it's a shame. It doesn't have to be this complicated, but for some reason it is complicated.
So I guess for people applying for jobs on adverts, if you really read into what they're asking for and you spot some inconsistencies between what the company is asking for and what's on the job advert, if you reached out to hiring manager and said, look, I saw a little gap here in your job posting, do you think that would put that candidate ahead of people?
No, and I'll tell you this from experience, I've done it myself. And what happens is a lot of them, their ego gets in the way. I've looked at people's job specs and I'm like companies or individuals and I've tried to help them. Like, so I don't want to do the hiring for you. I'm literally just generally helping you, the kindness of my heart. I'm telling your job spec is awful. And the amount of applicants that have applied demonstrates that. It's like, entry level SOC analyst role, right? Generally speaking, if you put that on LinkedIn within minutes, it's got 100 plus applicants, right? I'm seeing ones that have got 4 or 5 and they've been active for like a couple of days. So that's a red flag. Why is that? I look into it and I go, okay, your job spec sucks. So I message you and tell you your job spec sucks. A lot of them won't even reply back to me, and a lot of them will just give me like a snarky comment back. And I don't know if it's because they just look at my profile and they see recruiter, they haven't actually went down and dissected further about my background. But no, I wouldn't recommend candidates to do it because people's ego gets in the way, unfortunately. They don't like to be told that they're wrong.
Speaking about the actual applications, then, how would a standout entry-level cyber or IT person CV do you imagine would look like?
I'm going to give a top tip on this podcast, and 99% of CVs that I see do not have this. And it's two parts. The first part is what I got from my intelligence background, is to show confidence. And that's called the probability yardstick. So for any listeners that don't know what the probability yardstick is, more so in the UK, if you see an intelligence report or a politician on the TV, they use the probability yardstick. It's a measurement of the probability. For example, if you say something's highly likely, it means there's the probability of 70 to 90% that it's going to happen. I'll give an assessment right now. It is highly likely that you're going to publish this podcast on LinkedIn within the next 7 days. Now, how did I come to that assessment? Because we've had a conversation before we came on this podcast. You've told me how you're going to do it, and you've given me the intelligence for me to give that assessment. Okay. So back onto the CVs. Top tip. Like I said, 99% of people don't do it on their CVs. And this is not even just entry level, this is C suite as well. This is all the way up. When you're writing a CV and you're giving your bullet point to give your assessment on something, exhaust it. When you're doing intelligence reports and using the probability yardstick, what you'll get picked up on through training and your career is if you give an assessment, you need to say what's the so what. So back to my example, you're going to release this podcast on LinkedIn within the next 7 days. It is important for the Code and Tempo students to understand the knowledge that Michael McQuade is given on the podcast because it'll help them in a cybersecurity career. So you see what I did there? I've added what is the so what? Like you're publishing it onto LinkedIn in the next 7 days. So what does that mean? Back onto the CV example, I see people put, I'm a team leader or I'm a team player. What's the so what? I helped my previous company improve productivity. What's the so what? So it's all these very short sentences, but it's the what is the so what? The part two is adding stats and data on CVs. Back to my example I give with what I said about you putting the podcast out on LinkedIn, using stats and data to say it's going to happen in 7 days and this is why it's important. So if you wanted to add a further start to that example I just given, it could be that within the next 7 days, this will help 50% of students at Code and Temple be able to apply for jobs more effectively in the job market. Like I said, 99% of CVs I see do not add the so what and stats and data. Why is this important? And why am I telling you this? So when I worked for Microsoft and AWS, once I got into the inside, they've got an internal database with all the documents. And one of the documents I saw was the interview sheet. So if you were to apply for a job at Microsoft and AWS, what they will analyze you on is the so what and stats and data. On your CV and your interview, if you do not have both of those, you will not get a job. They don't care if you're Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates himself. If you do not demonstrate the so what and stats and data, you will not get a job. They do not care how great you are. They don't care if you came from Google, Meta, wherever you've come from, you've got to demonstrate that. If they're having, for example, a SOC analyst, there's a reason they need a SOC analyst. That's a so what. There's a reason they need one. Why do they need one? Because they're working on a project for a specific client and need somebody with a specific skill set who's had previous experiences in different jobs that could help them with a problem they've got right now. So anything you've done in your previous career, you saying your achievement, the so what, and stats and data, the hiring manager at the new company will read that and go, that's our problem at our company right now. This person has dealt with this problem we've got. And they sound different to the other 99% of CVs that we've just read. I want to speak to this person because this person has experience with the problem we've got and they look different in a good way. So that's my top tip for candidates. If you try it, you will get more interviews. The candidates that I've given this advice to privately through LinkedIn DMs, they've went away and done it and they've guaranteed more interviews. I'm not saying to guarantee a job because when you get to interview, that's up to you to. I'm not doing the interview for you. Like some people bottle it in an interview and say things they shouldn't say, but I guarantee you will get more interviews if you do that.
Next question. How do you not bottle it in your interview?
That's very subjective because it comes down to personality, right? Like I've seen the most confident individuals, and I'm talking extreme extroverts, bottle it in an interview. There's so many external factors. If you're applying for a job and you've got bills and debts piling up, there's a lot more pressure for you to get that job because you really need that job. So there's external factors that contributes to you bottling it. If you've already got a job and you want to get the next one up, you bottle it because, again, external factors like you could be having problems at home with a partner or your kids, or you've got debts. Do you want to buy a house, get a mortgage? You've got a car on finance. You really need that next job, the next pay. If you don't get that job, you've now got pressure on yourself because you won't be able to you won't be able to cover those debts. You've got these family problems at home. I can't say I've got a cheat code like I do for the CVs where it's like do this and you'll get more results. There's no right or wrong answer to it, unfortunately. You could have an interview where like you could do 6 interviews and 5 of them you do really well, and it's just that one you have a problem with. To be fair, I know a lot of interviewers who don't care if you bottle it because they know you're nervous, they know you're stressed. It might be your first ever job interview, so they let that bypass. As long as you're giving quantitative information out of your mouth, even if you're sweating and you're jubbling your words, as long as you're saying the right things, they can pick up and go, okay, this person's just nervous, but they're saying the right things.
So people need to be prepared to talk mostly about what in their interview for entry-level jobs when they see their career in cybersecurity. What do you think are the most important things for people to talk about?
I think the most important thing is if you're going to give examples, there's a method you can use called the STAR method: situation, task, actions, and result. I like to go one better and I like to call it the STARE. So STARE, and the E stands for evaluation. So if candidates use the STARE method, it gets you bonus points. And a lot of interviewers love it. Here was the situation, here was the task, here was the action, here was the result. But again, it ties back to what's the so what? The so what is here's my evaluation of the situation. Could I have done something better? Or no, I was happy with the way I did it, but maybe I would have changed this. It shows strategic thinking and analytical thinking as well. So evaluate. So if you get an interview question, always evaluate at the end. Use the STARE acronym, and it'll help you so much in your interviews. If you apply for a job at a big tech company, they're expecting you to do the so what and add stats and data. Evaluate at the end.
Okay, and another question I have, we kind of narrowed it down. It's going to be difficult for cybersecurity students to get into cyber roles right away, IT jobs. How long from, let's say, starting IT entry-level job do you normally see that progression until a person can get into the cyber role? And what are those initial cyber roles they get into?
My advice would be, and again, it's subjective because every industry, every country, every leader is different. But I would say do at least 2 years in the IT industry before you pivot into cybersecurity. That's for your own personal development as well. If you're going to do an IT entry level role, your best pivot would be going into as a SOC analyst, a security analyst. There's a lot of transferable skills there. So generally, if I speak to somebody who's got an IT analyst job and they're like, I want to get into cybersecurity now, what should I do? Obviously, the first thing is get your certifications. That's one thing. And then the next one is I'd recommend to go into a SOC analyst role because it's you've got the more transferable skills. They're very similar. But one thing I always say to people who want to get into cybersecurity is it's all well like taking advice from cybersecurity leaders or people who've been in and done that. But the most important thing you've got to understand is what job is it you want to do? Don't look at what's the easiest one to get into. Like, what job is it you want to do? That's the important part because If you want to have a cybersecurity career and you want to make that your career for the rest of your life, that's a very long time to be working in an industry. So if you go and do a SOC analyst role and you're like, I absolutely hate this job. Why am I doing this job? It's a long career of hating something. So you may as well try and find out what job you'd prefer to do. That was one of the reasons why I started my newsletter on my LinkedIn page. Two reasons I started actually. First reason was it was a survey conducted and across multiple industries and sectors that between 50 to 70% of business leaders and employees thought cybersecurity was IT. So there's a clear educational problem there that something's not getting communicated properly because they're obviously two different things. So the students of the school that they're going through with you guys, they're obviously going to know that it's two different things, but a lot of the world doesn't know that. They think it's the same thing. The second reason was I was constantly getting DM'd by people saying, I want to get into cybersecurity, but I don't know what job I want to do. And it's like, I always have to tell people, well, that's kind of your decision. Like, it's not me to tell you what to do. So you have to decide. And I'm like, well, I don't know what jobs there is. So I was like, it'd be a really easy way to conquer this is if I just write newsletters on every single job you can do. So by the time this podcast comes out, if you go on my LinkedIn page and go to my newsletter, every single job you can do in cybersecurity, blue teaming, purple teaming, red teaming, and additional roles like a cybersecurity consultant, CISO, IoT specialist, they will be a newsletter there for every job. And it's not just a description of the job, it's also like what certifications are needed for each role, what is the average salary for the roles as well. So it's also managing people's expectations. So will find if you look at my newsletters and you look at a SOC analyst, there's not a six-figure salary on that newsletter because it's not going to happen. Yeah, on the newsletter, I've got all the details like advice on if you want to get into this, what's the best way to do it, like set up labs, what platforms you can use to build labs. And then if you go into that role, what's your career path? Like what will be your next job? And if you want to start a cybersecurity business in the future, you need to do this, this, and this. So I'm also trying to inspire entrepreneurs as well. For the students that are listening, go on my LinkedIn page, look at my newsletter, have a look at all the jobs you can do in cybersecurity. Because you might find like people are saying to you, oh, just do a security analyst job. It's the easiest one to get into, like do it. But then you might come across my newsletter for a digital forensic analyst and go, oh, I like the look of that. I actually want to do that, but I never heard of that job. How did I get into that? I've had a lot of people come to me and say, I didn't know half these jobs existed in cybersecurity. And this is also from people who are in the cybersecurity industry as well. This isn't just like people fresh from the street. There's actually people in the industry who didn't know half these jobs existed. We often talk about the most common ones like ethical hacker, SOC analyst, threat hunter. Like those are the usual ones we talk about. There's all these other roles that people don't talk about. Check them out. You might come across a role where you're like, actually, that looks like the one I really want to do. Like, I might have to work a little bit harder, maybe put a bit of extra miles in, and I maybe have to do a little bit more certifications. But in the long run, that's what I want to do.
Nice. That's awesome advice. Sounds like your newsletter is a really good resource for all of those who are in the industry. And as we're talking long-term careers, it's very clear to see from what you're saying that going into cybersecurity is not like 6 months boot camp and get in right away, done and dusted, stay in the role. There's a lot of opportunities and quite a lot of work to get into that. So for people to decide where they want to go into, it's probably would be good to know what the future holds overall for the industry. What are your thoughts about that, particularly in the AI world?
A lot of people know about this, and a lot of people don't know about quantum computing. I encourage the students at Coding Temple to go away and research quantum computing if they don't know about it. Because I don't think we've got a long enough podcast to discuss all about it. But it's estimated that it's going to be available in 2035. And that source was from Joe Rogan's podcast with Mark Zuckerberg. He asked him when did he think it was going to become available, and he estimates 2035. So that's going to make AI look like Windows 98 as it looks now. We're living in this AI world where it's super advanced and doing everything quickly. But when quantum computing becomes available, it's going to make what AI looks like now to us now looks like Windows 98. It's going to look really good. My advice to students would be to learn about cybersecurity, but also learn AI machine learning, do courses on machine learning, have a good diversity of skills and knowledge on both sides of the field. So do your cybersecurity courses, do your certifications, and then do AI machine learning courses as well. So a source that I would give away that you can do for completely free, just to find out if you're going to enjoy it. If you go on to what was it called again? Let me check because I saw my LinkedIn, so let me check. And also for the listeners, I was on a laptop, now on my phone. That's why my screen's just moving about as I'm moving. So don't worry about it. Because I did a LinkedIn post on it and I've saved it for students to be able to check a look. Okay, so it's called Harvard X, and you can do courses through Harvard University completely free, cybersecurity and AI machine learning courses. If you want to get the certification, you do have to pay for them. Each course has a different price, but you can check that out in your own time. My advice is to do both, do the courses for free, see if you're going to enjoy it. If you've got certifications, knowledge, and preferably work experience in both disciplines, you'll become a real asset when 2035 quantum computing hits the market. Again, I could do a podcast on its own, why it's so important, but we're not going to discuss why it's so important. Just trust me that it's worth you doing both of them for when 2035 comes along.
So, what additional skills could students be looking to add to their cybersecurity bootcamp, for example, certifications? Let's say they get Security Plus, they get CH. What, in addition to that, do you think is going to be important for people to stand out in the market?
So I'm a big believer that continuous learning and education is vitally important as long as it's coming from the correct institution. Even now, with all my background and everything I've done, I'm still learning every day, deliberately. Sometimes lessons hit me where I'm learning on the job, but I actively go out to constantly learn and develop more. That's what helps me come on these podcasts and talk about these topics as well. For example, at Harvard University, check the courses out and see if there's any for you at all. Like, just it's completely free. Like you're exchanging your time, which is great. Like you don't want to be wasting time. And I wouldn't say it's a skill. It's actually vitally important. Again, 99% of people don't do it. Some of the people that come from my DMs, I tell them to do it and they still don't do it. And they're still in the same situation where they're struggling to find a job. It's really, really simple. Utilize LinkedIn for your job search. And I don't mean applying for jobs, I mean connecting with people. 9, 10 months ago, I had somebody tell me this, and I was like, oh my God, it sounds like one of these influencers. And people tell you stuff like that, oh, use social media to get what you want to get to. It's like, oh, here we go. What course are they going to sell me? But since I took that advice on board, I put my ego to one side and did it. I'm in a lot stronger position now. Since I've started growing my brand and who I am and what my background is, that's what helped you identify me on the market and to come on your podcast. If I wasn't doing that, we wouldn't be having this conversation today, which means the candidates wouldn't be getting this information today. So what I tell candidates is go on LinkedIn. Let's say you're in the United States. Let's say you live in Florida. You can go on LinkedIn, search for all the cybersecurity leaders, IT leaders in Florida, connect with them. You can send them a message if you want. It's completely optional. You can maybe send them a message saying, hey, I'm trying to break into the IT industry or the cybersecurity industry. It'd be great to connect so I can follow your content for great advice and support. Engage with the content, ask questions, go in their DMs, ask questions. A lot of them will be happy to give you free advice. Because one thing about the cybersecurity industry is we love talking about cybersecurity. It's our favorite topic. So if you have somebody come through and it's like, hey, could you tell me more about this? People will be happy to help you. And you might get lucky where you speak to the right person and they go, do you know what? I'm actually in a week's time going to put a job application out for a SOC analyst. But since you're a qualified SOC analyst, can I talk to you next week, please? And it's
Perfect.
completely free. Utilize social media like LinkedIn, find the decision makers, the leaders, connect with them, reach out to them, ask questions. Last month, I had a guy from Canada, I think he was in Toronto, connected me on LinkedIn, saw my content. He said, hey, can I jump on a call with you just for 30 minutes? I was like, yeah, no problem. Jumped on the call with the person. And he was asking me the questions that you're asking me on this podcast. So we talked about cybersecurity, certifications, AI. And then I started talking about quantum computing. And he was like, do you know, I've spoke to a couple of leaders on the calls already, trying to reach out to people, get content, like find out information. He's like, you're the first person who's ever talked about quantum computing. I explained to him why it's so important. Maybe we can schedule another podcast in the future and I can talk about it. I told him why it's important, and he's now gone away to get himself qualified in it.
Wow. Your advice to connect with people on LinkedIn is absolutely spot on. That's exactly what we also advise in our career services. We set them up with goals for networking and messages. I'm glad that you're feeling the same. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing with our audience your incredible tips, tricks, and insights. To everyone listening, please make sure you check out Michael's LinkedIn profile, his newsletter. He's got incredible information there that's definitely going to help you progress your cybersecurity career. See you next week.
Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Decoded. And if you're a tech leader navigating the evolving world of AI and organizational design, or if you're someone looking to break into tech, change careers, upskill, or simply find the right job support, we're here to help. At Coding Temple, we specialize in talent pipeline advice and workforce upskilling, preparing people and teams for the future of work through hands-on training and our dedicated careers camp. Thanks again for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time as we explore more ways to thrive in a tech-driven world.